Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the Lake Pend School District 84 regular business meeting. It's June 12, 2018. All trustees are present with the exception of our chair, Geraldine Lewis, is not here. Also Sean Woodward, our superintendent, Kelly Fisher, our clerk, is here, and other members. First order of business, if you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda is student recognition, and it's my pleasure to introduce the team. And is Dana Stockman, is she here? Please come forward and be recognized. Good evening.
Well, this is half of our team that went to nationals this year. I'm Donna Stockman, I'm the coach. This is my third year teaching the class. This is, well, you can introduce yourselves.
My name is Sam Jackson. Should we just say the names? Sam Jackson.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Corinne Capidine. I'm also co-captain with Sam. Hi, I'm Emma Reed.
And I'm Shane Curtis.
Okay, so Corinne, you get to start things off.
All right, well, thank you for having us tonight. We are, as you might have guessed, from Academic Decathlon. This year it's been my honor to be co-captain with my counterpart, Sam Jackson. Thank you for letting us be here. We kind of just want to tell you what Academic Decathlon is, what we do in the classroom, what we do when we go to competitions, and a little bit about our community, our outreach. So I'll turn it over to Sam to kind of tell you what Academic Decathlon is comprised of.
Okay, so Academic Decathlon is not only a United States competition, but it's also seeing events in Canada and the UK and China as of recent years. So basically, there's one central topic. This year was Africa, last year World War II, the year before that India, stuff like that, where there's a lot of culture or knowledge around it. And then you break that down into different subjects: math, economics, literature, 7 of those in total. And then at competitions with those topics, we'll take a 50-question multiple choice test, except for math, which is 30 questions. And at competitions also, we'll have an essay, which we normally write beforehand, and then a speech and an interview that also go into the total score. And each one of those events, it's a decathlon, 10 total, is worth 1,000 points. And then total that up, and we have team scores, which is 2 people from each division. And the division, this is important, is divided by GPA. So what's really important about Academic Decathlon is that it's not just like, oh, the smartest kids, oh, the 4.0s competing, because what really makes a team good is the Scholastic Division and the Varsity Division, which are lower GPA divisions. And then next year, the topic is 1960s, which is a very interesting topic.
I'm feeling good about this.
And then there's also the super quiz, which is kind of in a separate category, which kind of takes everything from all of the different areas surrounding the topic, and it's kind of a team-based quiz, and that's kind of in a separate category.
May I ask a question? Would that be okay? You have 10 events now. Do you each one participate in all of them? Okay, you don't specialize in one or another.
No, I mean, if we're in the studying, it's important to specialize because you can't learn it all. There's so much. But yes, every person takes every test, does every speech and interview and essay. It's no like I'm gonna take 2, I'll take 2. Everyone does everything.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so in the beginning of the school year, we're given an almost like 500 to 600 page binder full of material that we have to learn all about the 60s, which, as Sam covered, had the 7 topics of literature, econ, etc. So the majority of what we do in class is actually attempt to just memorize the binder as best we're able. And we do that by using study materials and taking practice tests and things such as that. And when we're not doing that, generally we're trying to recreate the environment of state and nationals. So we take practice speeches, we do practice interviews, and we take practice tests, which try to just increase our scores as much as possible. Additionally, we study even when we're not in the classroom, especially towards the end of the school year where we're going to state and nationals. We'll study over spring break, over summer break, on weekends, so we're pretty much just studying constantly. It's a great class, very fun.
Yeah, they get together once a week during the summer. Our first study session is next Monday. They gather at my house because I live in town. It's easy to get to. And we sit on my deck for 2 hours and we study.
Wow.
No, we're still waiting. Hopefully it'll be here in time for the first study session.
Hopefully not. You can just hang out.
Yeah, well, and we do, play cards and get to know each other and have snacks. Okay, Corinne, how's the gym?
Okay, so up here we have our raw scores from every competition, and you can see we started in the 34,000 range, and it's out of 60,000 points. So when you see 34,000, that sounds really bad, but trust me, it's actually pretty good. So keep that in mind. Our first competition was in October, and we increased by invitationals, which was in December, and then we had a drop at regionals. We actually didn't have one of our team members that day, but we waged guess that if he was there, we probably would have stayed pretty consistent, if not increased.
You went to a wrestling tournament instead.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we studied hard, and at state we had a huge increase, and we had a bit of a drop at nationals, but we still managed to place really well there.
And this is us being goofy at nationals with the mascots of the Frisco Rough Riders baseball team.
It was weird. They had a moose as a mascot,
I
but
thought the Rough Riders were the bear.
yeah, there was
It's the Bull Moose Party. How do you know that?
The stuff he learns
Yeah,
in
where's the
Texas.
bowl?
They don't have.
Sorry.
Okay, so Stan, this is back to you.
Okay, so like Corinne said, we did very well this year, as is kind of the norm for Sandpoint Academica. We have quite the track record of doing really well in these competitions. So at the state competition at Pocatello, we took first in our division as large schools. In Idaho, we're considered a large school. And everyone medaled, even the ones not on the main team of 9, well, this year it's 8. But it's normally 9. But even people who weren't on the main team, all our freshmen medaled. Everybody got a medal, which was really impressive. And then at the national competition in Frisco, we took 9th place in our division and 28th overall out of 72 teams. And then we managed to get that number 1 in Idaho but slipped past us at the state competition and really just got up there in our score. So we did really well there also.
Kind of. Who's your guys' main competition in Idaho?
sugar
Sure.
syrup.
Yeah, they're down by Boise.
It's the altitude up there.
Yeah, they were state champions the past 2 years, just like by a couple hundred points.
Oh, is that right?
Are they in the
But-
same division? I mean, they're a much smaller
No,
district.
they're not in our division. We took first in our division, but second overall to Sugar Salem by about a few hundred points, which is like on a 60,000 point scale. So
Wow.
Ridiculously
it was a
close.
We did beat them by about 1,000 at nationals. So
yeah, and we're not
Yes.
bragging, right?
we were in different divisions.
Well, you are good, I know.
Okay, yeah.
So with the art outreach, students in our class went to Farm and Sidwell and worked with students in, I think, kindergarten all the way up to 5th or 6th grade, teaching them about different art traditions within African cultures involving the arts, and then actually participating within that and making those projects with them. So we did pottery, we did soap carving and weaving, and had presentations about the different African cultures that make those crafts and art pieces to the classes.
Nice.
So one of the projects we did pottery, and we tried to mirror what we learned in class. So when I went, we made beads that are similar to beads that you might find on a lyre cassar, which is a piece of African art. And also back in October, Sam and Emma, I believe, went and made Leidenberg heads, which are those right there in the corner. One of my favorite things about working with people, kindergartners have really colored commentary sometimes that you don't necessarily see. It just kind of comes out of the blue. But also, they do ask some really good questions that kind of mirror what we asked in class, like, how old was this? Where was it found? And why is it still important today?
Yeah, so our next presentation that we did was soap carving, and that was based on a royal scepter, which was one of our art pieces. The royal scepter was not made of soap, as you might have guessed. It was made of ivory, but
We carved ivory soap.
Yes, we did carve ivory soap, and we just tried to make sure that we were teaching the kindergartens through, like, I think it was 5th grade was the highest?
6th grade.
6th grade, yeah.
And plus life skills students and
Nice.
special ed kids.
So yeah, we did a presentation on the art pieces, we worked with them, and generally it was just a really fun time.
And then most recently in the spring, we went back and did some kente cloth weaving. Kente cloth being a Ghanaian tradition, like a traditional textile. And we weaved with the kids, and we used the loom, as you can see in the bottom right photo. And we also taught them a little bit about it. We had a presentation that everyone put together. And that was really fun as well. Like everyone mentioned, it was good engaging with the kids and teaching them a little bit. Like, they asked interesting questions, and we answered to the best of our abilities. And even recently, I was walking around in,
Science circuit.
that's not the one. It's, okay. It was Senior Sunset Weekend? Dover. I was over in Dover. And the kid came up to me and was like, hey, I know you. You were at my school doing the art thing. And he was like, oh, that was really cool. Like, thanks for that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember you too. So I think the kids really enjoyed it. And like, they learned a little bit, and they got to like do something hands-on in an art class. So it was really helpful for them.
So, super quiz. That is, it used to be, according to Mary Bird, who used to coach the team, it was either science or social science, and it was the 10th event in the decathlon. And somewhere along the line, they changed it, and now Super Quiz is an 11th event, separate from the team score. And it is, at the state level, we do 36 questions, and it starts with the varsity students, and they get to work together, and they get 12 questions to answer, to art, to literature, to music, etc. And then the scholastic division comes up and does their 12, and then the honors division comes up and does their 12. At nationals, they also had a math question. So they had 39 questions. I don't envy them the math. I'm not math. Anyway, so we put together a little mini super quiz. You can work with a partner. We're going to pit them against you.
Well, wait a minute. Some of us were in the lower GPA division. Were you guys? I mean,
Community varsity.
oh,
Don't worry.
Yeah,
Got one
the
honors
GPA
kid.
is, honor students are 3.75 to a 4 point. Scholastic is 3 to 3.74, and varsity students are below a 3 point. And that doesn't include like their PE classes and art classes and music classes. It's just basically based on their core classes, math, science, English, history, foreign languages.
I think we junior varsity. I see.
Well, there is also pentathlon, which they do at the middle school level. I'd love to see that.
yeah, that was great.
They don't have quite as many topics. They don't do econ.
You really have to lower the level for Carrie and I. We are children of the 60s.
Well,
There's some damage done.
So Emma's going to be our MC for this portion, and these guys are going to work together, and you can whisper amongst yourselves. You get 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Okay, Kelly, let's go.
10 seconds to answer the question, and then I'll call time, and Emma will tell you what the answer is.
Well, wait,
Is it one at a time, or are we all three teams answer?
We're teaming up. We are all teaming up.
You're all
That's right. We're gonna see how smart. We're gonna see how smart the 6 of us are together. The 7th.
All right.
Do we, yeah, do you want us
So,
to write down our answer?
Jot it down, yeah, you can
Can I write
have one
down the
person
answer
write down
after
the
she says
answer.
what it is?
And then she'll do it, and-
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a hold up a piece of paper and show me what your answer is. How about we do that?
Okay.
You're good. Okay. You guys?
Come on, we got this.
Yeah. So
Is this on the 60s or after?
This is on Africa.
the
Oh,
entire team.
well, in that case,
Now we are in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Not Vietnam, huh?
Can I not do this? Here we go. The Great Zimbabwe served as a judicial center or palace in which culture? A. Nubian. B. Shona. C. Asante. D. Fang. Or E. Noah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have no idea.
oh, the letter, write the letter.
Okay.
All right, school
C.
board. We got C.
No, that's an A.
C. I'm a,
Oh.
an A. Okay, and high school. B. Shona. Correct.
Shona. Well, if in doubt, are you supposed to pick the middle, I think.
That's
So-
a made up
That was a warm up. A warm up.
Okay, 1-0. Let's go. We got this.
So we're counting
epic
all
comeback.
your guys' points total as one team with.
Sure. If it only, we only need one right answer among all of us to get credit.
All right, guys.
What do you guys have?
See? Did you?
You're just gonna pick C on all of them.
None of us.
I've tried
down the
I've
SAT.
tried
Run it down.
You have? It doesn't work.
All
Try something else.
right, next question. What kind of crime did Okonkwo commit when his gun exploded, killing someone? A. First degree. B. Second degree. C. Third degree. D. Male. E. Female.
Really?
This is from the novel we read.
Oh,
We have the
I have it
novel.
on good authority that it's that one.
All right, school board, what do you got?
Male or
Can
female?
you tell me what this is?
It's B.
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 Do we get a second choice too? Oh,
So you got B, you have, or second degree, female, and? Carrie?
So,
I think B.
B.
Our answer
Do you know
is
this?
E. Female.
Correct?
I phoned a friend.
Oh, someone who's read the book?
Wow.
Yes.
It has to be male or female when you have that answer.
How many questions are there?
6. We're not going to give you the full 36. In 160 CE, which of the following led to the collapse of the Han Dynasty? A. Smallpox. B. Influenza. C. The bubonic plague. D. Syphilis. E. Leprosy.
It's common knowledge. No. Okay. Sam's making me feel bad. He says it's common knowledge. I heard it.
I say C.
All right.
Blame it too.
The plague. So we got the plague.
Like,
Plague for 2.
Syphilis.
Syphilis. All right.
C. The bubonic plague.
Correct.
Worked.
All right. It worked. 2, 3.
Okay. It's gonna be an epic comeback.
If the money multiplier equals 8, the reserve ratio must equal.
Can we use our finance director over here? I mean, you know that?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, we're gonna go for it.
All right. Wait, time hasn't been called yet.
Okay.
Time. All right. A or
C.
C.
I'm thinking C already.
Is that A?
12.5.
Our answer is A. 12.5.
Yes.
All right.
I should say, Shane got a silver medal in econ at nationals.
Really? Shane, you did.
But the look on your face when the question came up is how I feel.
I have to admit, I don't know. And she, again, my friend over here, just do
All
it.
right. Next question. The intermediaries between the West and North African traders were A. The Bamboo. B. Berbers. C. Cameroon. D. Tripoli. E. Leo Africanus.
We'll wait, we'll wait.
North Africa. Could be triple.
I don't know. All right, no more changing your answers.
Okay, D.
All right, B, D. I need an answer.
Ding, 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 ding.
I need an answer.
B and D.
B and D. I don't think, okay, let's just continue.
Our answer is B, Berbers.
B.
I'm not doing
Half a point. I said B, he said D.
The difference between us and you guys, though, we're guessing, you're not. You know the answers, right? Okay.
All right, what is the most common texture heard in Quranic recitation?
Wait, hold on. Time out. Can we make some sort of bargain here on the amount of points that this is worth?
No. We are there
I think
on
it's-
a competition.
Let's triple down.
I
All or
don't know what
nothing.
you're talking about, we would never do that.
We're all in.
We're all in.
Yep, 100% of
All
our.
right,
100%.
A, polyphonic, B, heterophonic, C, homophonic, D, stereophonic, E, monophonic.
The chance that the Muslim student pray. So they. It's not going to be
I say E.
Great, I don't know which,
Oh,
okay, that's an A.
sorry.
E.
A,
E.
and that's a C.
E, monophonic.
No way.
Yep.
All right.
Well,
We doubled down.
I think you creamed us. Thank you.
You guys cheated. Actually, yeah, how do we know that you didn't have these questions ahead of time?
I think Miss Stockman would give them.
Miss Stockman would never do
That
that.
is
no.
questioning her honors,
Shady looking bunch, huh?
So, we just want to thank you for having us here today. We would also like to thank PAVE because they have given us grants to pay for our program. We rely a lot on volunteers to come in to our local meets and judge speeches and interviews. And thankfully, I have 3 retired English teacher buddies who are always willing to come in and read essays on a Saturday.
That's awesome.
I don't know why. It doesn't sound like my idea of a good time. We had to raise a lot of money last minute in about 3 weeks to pay for our trip to nationals, and we had a lot of generous business people and individuals who sponsored us to go to Texas, which was just so much fun. And I also really want to thank Sharon Gunter, who is the art teacher over at Carmen Stidwell, who helped me brainstorm all of this up. But willingly took these children into her classroom and let them hang out with her students and speak for yourself.
Well, good. Dana, well, please bring your team up here. We'd like to meet them before they leave here. I think.
And we have some graduating seniors, too.
Hi. I'm Emma.
Good to see you, buddy. Thank you so
Good
much.
job, guys. Thank you.
so
Good job.
much.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Good job. For you too. Thank you. Good job.
Very good.
Thank thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Hey, congrats, too. Appreciate it. Very cool.
Congratulations.
Is everybody gathered back? You guys want to get back here? Come on.
All right.
We'll scoop between.
Look like it was a crowded meeting.
Should we be crouching? Come on.
Oh, that's right.
Are we correct?
Sorority girl, please.
No, are you guys in the picture?
Oh, that works too. That's
Oh, we're good.
That's better.
Sorority girl.
All right. Make sure. Oh, yeah, that looks great.
All right. Only 2 takes. Thanks again for coming tonight.
Yeah, if you ever want to judge a speech or interview,
That'd be fun. I'd like to judge like an interview or
I'll send
speech.
y'all our first meets in October.
That would be fun.
The next on our agenda, we have public comments. I don't see anybody signed up, so we will move right on to the action items. First one is the consent agenda. We have the last regular meeting minutes plus 2 special meetings that we had. And does anybody have any additions or correction on the minutes? In that case, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agendas
Second.
for this meeting and for the 3 previous.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion at all? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Next, we have the presentation of the budget for FY 2019. And we have our Chief Financial Officer, Lisa House, here to present that. Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening, all. Well, I promise this won't be as animating as the antecedent presentation.
No quizzes.
For the audience, what I'm presenting here tonight will be posted on our district website tomorrow. So we're talking about next fiscal year, which commences July 1st, 2018, and ends on July 30th, and ends on June 30th, 2019. All school districts in the state of Idaho are required to send to the State Department of Education their adopted budget. This is not the document that is sent. It's numbers and general ledger account numbers, which are meaningless unless you understand those account numbers. This is more of an executive summary of several hundred pages with those account numbers outline, and it's meant to serve our community and stakeholders with a summary of what our budget entails without knowing anything about our school district or school district finance lexicon. And it has a few charts and graphs that hopefully allow the reader to better understand the structure of the budget for the school district. And I'm just going to move through some of the highlights of the document so that you as trustees know the content if you are fielding questions or need something to go to quickly yourself. We are required to adopt our budget 28 days before our annual meeting, and at the end of the presentation and discussion tonight, Mr. Vice Chair will need a motion to adopt the fiscal year 18-19 budget as presented.
Okay.
So within the document, it tells the reader the school board meets where and when, and our website. It presents our schools with the grade configuration and contact phone numbers. It shows you who our central office administrators are, and then my team, the fiscal team. It also provides for those positions that are filled, the names of the building principals, administrators, and then our other department directors. It gives a brief overview of our district. It shares that our overall budget this year is just shy, next year is $35 million. We have approximately 500 full-time equivalent employees. We actually issue almost in the 900s as far as W-2s annually. So these are full-time equivalencies. There are 114 brick and mortar school districts in Idaho, and now 164 total public school districts, and we are the 22nd largest, educating just about 3,700 students. Our major operational fund, which is called the general fund, is about $31 million next year, and that includes the maintenance and operation supplemental property tax levy. We are just completing our first year of that supplemental levy, and next year will be the second and final year. In terms of general funds, full-time average daily attendance per pupil spending, we ranked 47th of the 164 school districts. And there's more detail as I go on later this evening. And last year, our spending in the general fund per pupil was $9,146. And then all the other funds, mainly federal funds, are just shy of $4 million. This is just a visual of the structure of the school district. And then I just want to spend probably the majority of the time on a summary message. And so the first thing I want to share is that the process of bringing this budget document to you tonight started almost 5 months ago. It starts with a small budget committee that ultimately that has representatives of all categories of staff, is chaired by me, and we make recommendations to the superintendent. The superintendent digests those and adds and edits, and then comes before you, the board, coupled with a financial overview by me to the board, and the deliberations, and this is the net result of that 5 months worth of work. And there are really 4 factors that sculpt the budget this year, and I'm going to start with number 4, which is a factor in every public school district's budgeting process, of trying to project what student enrollment or average daily attendance will be. And then number 3, as I mentioned earlier, we have a 2-year supplemental property tax levy, a fixed dollar amount. It will represent about 27% of our general fund revenue, so about a third of our revenue source. And then number 1 and number 2 are quite different. I'm starting out my 15th year with the school district. In terms of factors that really play a pivotal role in trying to project revenues for the district next year. And the first was the federal Tax Cut and Jobs Act, passed in December of 2017. And it's only when states started to analyze that in early January that they realized that the net effect was actually going to increase in many states, including Idaho, the tax responsibility of the taxpayers, both individually and on the corporate level. So generally in the fall, there are different committees that are meeting trying to project revenues, and they pretty much solidify those in the end of December, early January, and then this really added a lot of extra work, and ultimately we are also trying to project revenues, and what ultimately resulted is that our Idaho legislature has passed reductions in tax responsibility to both on the corporate level and on the individual level. And then the other thing, and I use the word here unprecedented, is that the federal government's budget cycle starts October 1st, and generally, historically, it's not adopted by October 1st. There's a couple of months of delay. Generally, it's adopted by January. And here, this year, for the fiscal year that started October 1st, 2017, we did not adopt the budget until March 27th, 2018. So well into half past their fiscal cycle. So that meant that technically we were operating for this fiscal year on estimated appropriations. And there was a real, what's the best way to say this? There were significant differences in the priorities of the Oval Office and what happened and Capitol Hill. And ultimately, the Oval Office had asked for this fiscal year almost a 13% cut in federal funding for the Department of Education, and for the fiscal year we're talking about tonight, about a 5% cut. But ultimately, for this fiscal year and the dialogue that is still unfolding, there seems to be a lot more support for public education than the Oval Office monetarily is presenting.
So can I interrupt you? So
Of course.
how?
Yeah, well,
what's-
let's wait till we get through his
Oh, okay.
presentation.
Okay.
We'll get the questions later after we get a motion.
So now, turning back to the state of Idaho, what happened in the state of Idaho? There has been push for several years now to restore the appropriation level for K-12 to at least pre-recessionary levels, inflation adjusted. And the appropriation for next year, fiscal year 19, for K-12, for the first time actually brings it to the 2008 inflation-adjusted appropriation level. Ultimately, it was a 5.1% increase from this year, and for us, compared to the revenue that we will receive from the state this year, it was about an additional $1.1 million. Still, there are now 2.5 years into a legislative interim committee that's been looking at the funding formula that generates the dollars for public school districts in Idaho. It's now been 25 years since there's been some major overhaul. And I should share with you that there are now statewide meetings and focus groups. The 10-member committee has hired a consultant to help facilitate that whole process. The meeting for our region is next Tuesday. There's a focus group that is a closed meeting. And then from 5 to 7 p.m., you can actually get up and make comments. Our state appropriation is about 71% of our general fund budget. And then some other highlights that influence the structure of the budget are we're projecting flat enrollment, but flat enrollment doesn't mean that it generates the same dollars. Different students in different types of programs in different schools generate very different types of dollars. We also have budgeted what we call an enrollment buffer in order to address staffing needs as the students turn up in September. I can share with you that already some of those dollars have been deployed, as we know, for example, in our special education department. And historically, we use these dollars that are in this budget buffer and more. We also have $130,000 of contingency dollars that could be used for staffing, or they may be for something more along in the maintenance department, or just something that's unforeseen at this time. Ultimately, we cut $550,000, and that included 1 full-time teacher and 4 classified positions. At the state level, there were varying increases for the 3 different categories of staff, but overall in our district, it's an average of a 4% increase for staff, which is less than what the state increase was. It's also important to share with you that our general fund balance is projected to be $2.2 million June 30th of 2018. We have board policy that we'll go into in just a bit, but this budget includes a transfer out of our general fund of $100,000 to a plant fund reserve. We started last fiscal year with $892 in our plant fund. We contributed $100,000 for the first time, and this is now the second contribution. And then we also are contributing $200,000 to the general fund reserve, and I'll elaborate on that again in a little bit. I mentioned earlier we have a supplemental levy, 27% of our general fund revenues. It's absolutely fulcrum to the operation and continuation of programs in our school district. It's also really important to know that that supplemental levy was a line item ballot, and we we, as a school district, in our accounting software, track our supplemental levy, but separately. We elect to do that, it's not required, it's very unusual. And when we present the budget to the state, and in this document, it's included on the pages, and the page numbers are on the center bottom of the document. But then at the final page of this document just shows exactly what the supplemental levy is in terms of line items. And then the district has some lease purchase debt of $51,000. We've almost paid off that 20-year lease purchase agreement for our central office here in Ponderay, Idaho. We have what I would call nominal capital budget line items, $150,000 in our supplemental levy for some capital technology. But that's basically it. And that differentiates us from almost all the school districts in Idaho that either have some kind of bond or plant levy on the books. This is just a visual of the enrollment since our district became a district in July of 2099 when we split from now what's called West Bonner, showing you that we had at one period in time lost almost about 12% of our enrollment. We pretty much flatlined, and then we had a downturn when Coldwater Creek declared bankruptcy, and now we're back up to that point. I referred earlier to board policy for our general fund balance. This was established in 2005, and we set in that policy a goal of contributing $100,000 to the designated part of our general fund balance. Designated means that in order to tap into those funds, myself, the superintendent would have to come before the board formally to spend those dollars. Compared to undesignated funds where there's some kind of emergency and we don't have to formally come before the board. And the goal was to have 5% of the designated funds be what we're collecting in revenue. And next year, it shows you that our next year proposed general fund budget would be just shy of 31 million, and that the designated part would be 1.5. And our current designated is 1.5. What has happened over the years is that our fund balance, when I started, was actually in the hole by almost $500,000. And this is why we put this policy in place, was to build a fund balance. At a high point, we had about 18%, and ending this year, this figure of 2.2 million would be about 7.2%, which is from my recommendation standpoint, way too low. This is why this year we contributed $200,000, and this is why next year we're also contributing $200,000. This just shows you the visual of a high point of about 18%. We actually, during the height of the recession, used about $1 million of fund balance in order to, as a one-time revenue source. We're at the point from a cash flow standpoint with a fund balance of this level, where in June and July, in order to meet our operational costs, we're this close to being having to borrow in order to, for example, to meet payroll. And that's just one reason, but it's, there's a recommendation of about 15%, and I'm actually considering coming before the board to, in this board policy that I'm referencing, not only say, well, there's a goal of 5% for the designated part, but there's an overall goal of a 15% total general fund balance.
And that part, just to clarify a little bit more, one of our 5 priorities that you will be hopefully voting on tonight is utilizing resources effectively and be fiscally responsible, and that might come under one of our strategies or initiatives associated to that priority, just to kind of keep it dial into that.
In the short paragraph of the district overview, I refer to the fact that we as a school district are ranked 47th on expenditures for last fiscal year 2017. This is from the State Department of Education, and the presentation here shows you in the second column the general fund expenditures, and in the final column all funds, so including federal funds and importantly what are called plant funds. And you can see that I think the tiny district, Avery, I think has the highest per pupil spending, 26,000. What really differentiates our school district is better gleaned from looking at this presentation. This is, the state takes all of the audits every year, and they're so behind that they only have the actual data for fiscal year 16, almost 2 years ago. But and we have to report all of our expenses, and they're aggregated in these different categories annually. And here in our general fund, we're pretty on par with the state, but what really accents how different we are, Lake Pend School District, is this lower presentation where it's all funds. And again, you'll see for us versus the state, debt retirement, bonds are in this number. We have no bonds, we have no plant levy, and capital objects. And this has been true since I've been here, except for the 2-year plant levy that we passed now a couple of years ago. Also, the State Department of Education, after the annual audits are presented, takes every school district and in this one-page format shows the general fund revenues and expenditures, and then all the other, what they call major funds. And this is our report, our one-page report from last fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017. All public entities in Idaho have budget noticing requirements, and in this format, you have to have, it's 4 years of information, 2 budget and 2 actuals, and just some things to point out for the proposed budget for fiscal year 19 for our school district. So here when it says beginning balances, what does that mean? When it's on a revenue side and we've got a negative number, it means this is where we report we're going to contribute $200,000 to our general fund designated fund balance. And then, as you recall in one of our meetings, our health insurance projection of 7% ended up higher than what the actual was of overall of 3.1%, and we agreed we're going to carry forward to offset fiscal year 20. It's basically $61,000. This shows our local tax, that's by and large our maintenance and operations supplemental levy, our state appropriation, and then this is completely unexpected when it transfers in. It's always really important to pay attention to transfers because they can be very large numbers, and they can really demonstrate what's happening in any kind of public entity's budget. So here, this transfer in of $114,000 is actually what we call federal forest dollars, which the federal government had not reauthorized. Our Senator Crapo and Senator Ron Wyden out of Oregon, along with about 8 other senators, when the federal budget was passed on March 27th, was able to have federal forest dollars appropriated. And this is huge for school districts in Idaho, and also a source of revenue for counties in Idaho. It's our recommendation, our superintendent and myself, that because our fund balance is so low and this was an unanticipated revenue, that we would actually transfer this July 1st, 2018 into our fund balance. Then on the expenditure side, salaries and benefits, other important things, again, I mentioned our contingency, and then this transfers out. And what are the transfers out? First, as I mentioned, $100,000 to our plant fund, $50,000 to our child nutrition fund. It will operate at a deficit, and $360,000 to what's called the bus acquisition fund. We receive annually what are called state bus depreciation dollars, and then which is about 70% of the cost of a bus, and then we as the district match 30% and transfer that to the bus acquisition fund. And then we also have a debt payment in our plant fund for the central office. So if we were talking about what would I project our fund balance June 30th, 2019 is going to be, added the $200,000 and the federal forest dollars, that would bring it up to about 8.3%, about $2.5 million. And then in the final column are our other funds, our federal funds, and there are some dollars in there that we did not anticipate. Most poignantly, a Title II appropriation where the president's recommendation was to completely eliminate that program. And then the rest of this document shows just what are called the programs. The state has all the different instructional programs and administrative programs broken out, comparing this budget cycle to next budget cycle. And then it shows then all of our, starting on page 20, the different other funds. Here showing the Title II dollars that we did not, where's Title II? Oops, sorry.
It's on page 21.
We did not anticipate receiving this $123,000, and then and we expect that for fiscal year 19, although that budget on the federal level hasn't been adopted, that this is the estimate appropriation we've received. And then finally, in closing, I said that we have a line item supplemental levy, and that it is rolled into all the reports, and it's considered the general fund, but here we just, for the voters, we show exactly how the dollars will be spent. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
First of all, let me just say thank you very much. I realize the amount of work and time that went into this. Thank you very much, and your staff. I think we have some questions. Gary, did you have some questions like the
Yeah, I had a question about our federal revenue. Okay, do we get our revenue directly from the federal government, or is it passed through the state?
It is sent to the state. The state takes an administrative percentage, and then the districts expend the dollars, and on a reimbursement basis, we receive the dollars.
Okay, because I was looking at the state budget here, and the Department of Education shows federal income. So that's shared with the districts. I mean, each district according to the matrix.
Right. And as I said, there is, from year to year, there is an administrative component. And of course, the state budget has other federal dollars that are not appropriated to K-12. And I'm sorry, I can't
So
expound
like
on
this report is through 2016-17 school year, and it shows that the State Department received $264 million in federal funds. So but we qualify for funds, based on a federal formula. So we have to, we qualify for these funds. So do we send these reports directly to the federal government, And then the state gives the money, or the federal government gives the money to the state, or it's passed on to us?
All public school districts in Idaho send their federal reporting data to the state.
Send the federal reporting
Then-
data to the state.
The state sends it to the federal government. But each school district, when their annual audit is completed, they have to file with the federal government a copy of their audited financial statement.
Okay, any other questions, board members? Just for the record, there was nobody that signed up from the public. It is a public hearing, and I think that portion of it will close, and we'll entertain a motion to pass this budget as presented tonight. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the 2018-2019 budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the budget presented tonight and as stated in the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
The next item we have is Professional Learning Community PLC Days of Early Release, Wednesdays for 2018-19 and 2019 and 20 calendar school years. And is that going to be presented by the superintendent?
Yes, Principal Albertson could not be here today, so this is in your packet, his request. And basically what this would be is to continue the early release schedule for Wednesdays that was previously approved for semester 2 of this school year. And that would be included then in our 2018-19 or 2019-20 calendars. And as a reminder, that the impetus of this was, you probably remember Tom's presentation with staff, was to allow their professional learning communities by department to work on the 4 critical questions of student learning, which were outlined during that time. And there are no financial considerations.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Yes, any questions?
Question for the super, I mean, we approved this, I think, right after the first of the year, so they've effective immediately. So during the school year, they've been doing it for several months.
Yes.
I mean, do we have any feedback about how effective this time has been, how it's been spent?
I've got feedback.
You have, would you like to share a little of that?
Yeah, I got feedback from those doing it that were very thankful and glad to get that time because they felt, I think beforehand, there's always the willingness to do the extra, but not necessarily enough hours in the day to fit it in. So they were the folks I talked to were very happy that we instituted the change so that they got the time to do it. And I think it felt like it was more focused.
Yes.
And able to concentrate on what they exactly are trying to do. So.
Thank you for sharing that. And those are the similar kinds of anecdotal feedback that I've received. I'm not sure, but Andrew, you might know, have they done a formal survey or not? Which if not, that's something that we definitely will do moving forward. What I've heard mostly is what Lonnie has heard, and that is that they appreciate the fact that it's directed time around these 4 critical questions, because if they're not given the time, they're saying we can't get everybody on the same page at the same time because our planning schedule isn't set up that way. So the way I look at it is it's just a massive, on one hand, and Gary and I have talked about this, we don't like to release kids early from school, but on the other hand, the return on investment is very positive. But I do believe that just with any other change that we have at a certain point in time, we need to get some more formal feedback from staff. And we could do that in the fall, and we can present that to you all as well.
Are these sessions well attended?
Oh yeah,
Participation?
it's required. Yeah, so the only way that you would be allowed to miss them is if you are a coach and you had to have an early release and you were traveling.
Is there department chair, do they have a formal agenda for
They
each
do.
meeting?
Exactly, yeah. So it's very, very formal, and as well as a formal protocol that's to be followed during each meeting as well. One thing that might be interesting for you all would be next year to come and sit in on one of those meetings with us and just be a fly on the wall to see the kind of work that's being done. I think that would be great.
Has there been any negative feedback from parents as far as the extra hour?
No, I've heard parents tell me that they have appreciated the fact that when it's on the calendar and they know, they would rather them not miss school to have dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, so there's been more people trying to schedule appointments during that time, yeah. But I haven't heard anything negative myself.
Any further questions? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to continue the early release schedule for Wednesdays as presented to us tonight.
I make a motion that we continue the early release Wednesdays for the 2018-19 and 2019-20 calendars.
I second.
It's been moved and second that we continue the early release schedule as stated in the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have naming of district facilities. Superintendent Woodward.
All right, so that was fantastic, the turnout that we had at the last board meeting for David Demers. And, well, our most well-attended staff, or board meeting of the year, I think, and it was quite a tribute. And the funniest thing about it is I saw David at a graduation party at Matt Brass's house on Sunday morning, I think, or Saturday morning. And he said, you know what? He's lived in Sandpoint his whole life. He said, I didn't think anyone in Sandpoint could keep a secret, right? He had no clue that was going to happen at the board meeting. So I've only heard overwhelmingly positive feedback from people since that meeting that have heard about it since then. So all I'm asking tonight would be for you to formally approve the naming of the track and field after Mr. Demers.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm very excited to move to rename the track in the honor of Dave Demers.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we honor Dave Demers by naming this field after him, as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Next, we have strategic plan priorities. Superintendent Woodward.
All right.
Sure.
So I will not spend a lot of time on this since it's the second conversation. There weren't any concerns about the 5 priorities or the process that we went through up until this point on our big 5 priority areas. The questions were more centered on the metrics and how to measure whether or not we were being effective. So tonight, I'm just asking that for those 5 big pillar areas being ensuring academic success, high levels of learning for every student, providing safe and innovative learning environments, the priority around recruiting, training, and retaining effective/talented personnel. I mentioned using resources effectively and being fiscally responsible, and finally the community engagement piece be our 5 big focus areas for our 5-year plan. Again, highly reflective of the feedback that we've received from the community. And so I'm asking for approval in those 5 areas tonight, and then we'll begin our action planning in earnest, of course, this summer. But then wait until August to bring the metrics back in front of you so that when our state data from this year is finalized, we will bring it to you at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So we're not going to establish the metrics. I mean, we've discussed the metrics, but we haven't finalized exactly which ones we're going to use. We're going to focus on the ones that the state is providing for us, and we may add, 1 or 2 that are prepared nationally by a third party.
Yeah, and I'll bring that to you all. Let's see, a recommendation, the first meeting in August at the soonest, and then at the latest, the second meeting in August. So
Generally, we're going to use our IRI, our ISAT. We're going to use our SAT, PSAT data
Exactly.
that we provided.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we're going to use also the state established graduation rate and go on rate.
exactly. Yeah, and the concern was around exactly which numbers do we, how do we want to state it, as a percentage or students met? And so we're working out some of the questions you all had from last time. Yeah.
Any further questions? In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the strategic plan priorities as stated tonight and also previously.
I move that we accept that, not the metrics, but the framework for the strategic plan as presented.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the strategic plan priorities as presented here tonight and previously also. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have request to use the State of Idaho Dell contract for purchases of Dell Chromebooks. Matt Bass. Good evening, Matt.
Okay, I think this is the fourth time I've come up with the board asking to use the Dell contract that we have with the state. It ended March of 2017, or would have, but they put an amendment or addendum on it, and it's now, the contract with Idaho runs through 2020. We have the opportunity to purchase through this contract. My proposal is that we purchase 750. The way that lays out is we have, we want to get them into, so we have, right now we have third grade covered, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12. We want to get the 4th, 5th in there, so we have Chromebooks from 3rd to 12. The iPad 2s that are currently in elementary school, we will retire. They're old, they haven't been supported by Apple for 2 years. Pushing the iPad 4s to K1-2 for now, while we finalize what we're going to do with those grades. But starting next year with this purchase, we have Chromebooks from 3rd grade all the way up through the 12th grade level. They retail, this year they retail for about $218.99, that is what it was on today. I talked with our Dell rep, and the estimated price was $170 and potentially even a little bit less. So the price for unit, the price for all of them would be $127,500 with the one-time fee for the Chromebook Enterprise license, so that we can manage them all under our umbrella, is $18,750, so $146,250 total. We've used these Chromebooks. This is we've had our second full year with them. The first purchase that we did was with a different brand. There were a lot more break fixes. With the Dells, we've had a lot less breaks. The fixes that we're able to do are paid for through the insurance program at the high schools. And I think this last year I had to put about $700 from my budget into screens and keyboards to fix. That was all to cover, we're at like 1,800 Chromebooks right now. So the maintenance, along with we're using the IT interns at the high school to do all those fixes, which is a great opportunity for them, and it's really good for us as well. Let's see, anything else that I need on this? It's been approved. The first year we got 360. Last year we did 450, I think. This year 750. And do you guys have any questions?
Thank you, Matt. Yes, go ahead.
Are all the Chromebooks compatible? Are they all on the same series?
Yeah, so we've had the first one through Dell, we got the 3120s. And then the 3180s came out last summer, or a little earlier than last summer, and those are the ones we purchased last summer. Those are the ones we'll purchase again this summer. The price is going down because Dell, sometime in the next probably 6 months, will launch their next iteration of it, the 31.
Yeah, so that was my next question, the price. Well, I mean, 2 years ago when we bought it, how much did we spend? And last year?
So we spent, I'd have to look, we were just under $200 the first year we did it. Last year, I think we got them for around $190, in that range somewhere.
This year,
This year we're looking at around $170.
So, I mean, are the computers comparable equipped? Are they?
The computers are the Chromebooks.
The Chromebooks, I'm sorry, the Chromebooks.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the first ones we had that had only 2 gigabyte or 2 gigs of memory. These have 4.
So
The hard drives aren't really an issue because we use our Google Drive, and so all the kids' data automatically gets pushed into the drive, so they don't even have large hard drives. But the memory, 4 gigs of memory.
So the memory's doubled and the price has gone down.
Technology these days.
what I
And
do.
you're happy with the durability of the
Oh,
cases? Are they,
We don't have to buy cases for them. They come rubberized on the outside. And we have, like I said, the insurance program pays for the upgrades. If a kid damages theirs and turns it in, they're charged for whatever they damage. If the whole unit's lost, then they're charged for all of it. And at the elementary and middle school levels, we see a few break fixes for sure.
They
but
don't go
not-
home, they don't go home.
They don't go home, they stay in the classroom, so. The teacher, this year we had one incident at a school where the teacher saw a kid break it and was doing something they shouldn't have with it, and the parents paid, we had the parents pay, and they paid for the screen replacement. So durability of them is good, the repair system we have down, compared to the iPads in the first year, the Chromebooks, I think we're down probably 75+% on repairs. So it's going well.
Thank you. Any further questions? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase of the Dell Chromebooks.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the purchase of the Chromebooks. 770 of them,
750.
750.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of these Chromebooks as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Okay, we're down to board policy. Kelly, would you like to give us some board policy?
Oh, yeah, so we're just gonna, that's right, start with Jackie Johnson's second reading, but there were no questions last time. Were there any changes? I couldn't remember. Nothing, so,
No.
There was one, the red told that we accept just a grammar change.
Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve, I guess it's 2420 Title I Parent Involvement as it was revised and presented to us.
I make a motion that we approve policy 2420, Title I Parent Involvement as revised.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve 2420 Title I as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. That motion carries. Next, we have the second reading. It has listed Brian Smith here. I don't see him.
no, so, yeah, so the only difference was that we added the C negotiated agreement for details on assignments, reassignments, and transfers, that bold statement. And that was all that was asked at the last meeting.
In that case, unless there are questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve 52, or policy 5220, assignments, reassignments, and transfers as it was revised.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the second reading, or policy 5220, assignments, reassignments, and transfers as revised and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve 5220 as stated. Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Next, we have policy 5740, reduction in force, as that was revised. Are there any questions on that one? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve board policy 5740, reduction in force, revised as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the revision of policy 5740 as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. And that concludes our action items. Announcements. Superintendent, any announcements?
Yeah, thank you. So I
We
just
had a
want,
lot going on this week with graduation, so.
oh my gosh, yeah, I was really just going to say a thank you to you four and Geraldine for your participation in the graduation ceremonies. I couldn't have thought of a better way for you to experience some of those schools and get to know more about those schools just by attending those graduation ceremonies. And it's a gift to have you there. The staff was very happy to see you there, and it meant a great deal. And I was happy to have you join up there to shake the kids' hands, and it just probably means more to them than you fully realize. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, and I got hugs.
That's right, you did. That was so cool.
I got shunned.
Your grandson hugged you.
Oh, yeah, I will say. Well,
Yeah, he was obligated.
no, it was a very good experience. I reiterate what the superintendent said. It's just, you realize how many great kids we have, and teachers and staff and people and parents that put it all together to have these fine representatives there. It was a real pleasure.
So I'd never been to the Clark Fork or the LPO graduations before, and I was, very, very impressed with the students and with the staff and with the close personal relationships between the students and staff. It was beyond my expectations. It's really impressive.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd also like to say, with regard to the Sandpoint graduation, I support their new arrangement, the way they arranged the seating on the field. I thought it was excellent.
The weather was nice, too.
Yeah,
Like that.
that's right.
Okay, no further business or announcements. We will stand adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.